Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the main window of his ship looking out at the last human transport ships leaving Earth's space stations. His hands pressed against the cold metal rail as he watched hundreds of vessels moving away from their home world. Each ship carried thousands of people who had lived their entire lives believing they belonged among the stars with other species. Now they were leaving everything behind because the galaxy had made it clear that humans were not wanted. Captain Lisa Harper walked up beside him with a data pad in her hands. She had spent the last 6 months organizing the largest evacuation in human history. Every person, every ship, every piece of important technology had to be moved beyond the edge of known space. The operation was called Silent Dawn, and it meant humanity would disappear completely from galactic civilization. The last group from Mars Colony just cleared the inner system, Lisa said quietly. All mining operations have been shut down and the equipment destroyed so no one can use it against us later. Jake nodded but did not look away from the window. 300 years ago, when humans first discovered faster than light travel, they thought they would join a community of peaceful species working together to explore the universe. The reality had been very different. The Galactic Council was controlled by 2 major powers who saw humans as dangerous primitives who needed to be controlled and limited. The Zephyrian Empire had been the first to contact humanity. Their tall crystalline beings had seemed wise and peaceful when they arrived at Earth, with offers of trade and knowledge. But every treaty they offered gave humans less and less freedom. They could only trade certain goods, only travel to approved systems, and only settle on worlds the Empire said were suitable for their kind. The Corvan hegemony was worse. These reptilian warriors believed that might made right, and they saw human military capabilities as a threat to galactic stability. Every time humans defended themselves from pirates or hostile aliens, the Corvans complained to the Council about human aggression. When human colonies were attacked, humans were forbidden from fighting back with full force. Dr. Nathan Cruz had served as Earth's chief ambassador for 20 years. He had attended every council meeting, presented every human achievement, and argued for equal treatment with other species. The council members would listen politely, then vote to place more restrictions on human expansion. When humans developed new medical technologies that could save billions of lives, the council limited their distribution. When humans created better ship engines, the council banned their sale to prevent humans from gaining advantages. The final insult came 6 months ago. The council voted to establish exclusion zones around all human colonies. They claimed it was for the protection of other species who might be corrupted by human values of individual freedom and aggressive expansion. In reality, it was a prison system designed to slowly strangle human civilization until they either submitted completely or died. Commander Amy Watson received the emergency message from Earth's government while her ship was patrolling the outer colonies. The message was brief and used code words that had been prepared for this exact situation. Project Exodus is approved. All human assets are to withdraw beyond the galactic rim. Initiate Protocol 7. Protocol 7 meant that humanity would not just leave galactic space, but would disappear so completely that other species would assume they had given up and died in the darkness between galaxies. Every human settlement would be abandoned, every treaty would be ended, and every diplomatic contact would cease. Humanity would become a ghost that had never really existed. The evacuation took 8 months to complete. Mining colonies and asteroid belts had to pack up equipment that had taken decades to install. Research stations studying dangerous phenomena had to destroy their work rather than let it fall into alien hands. Military bases had to be stripped of weapons and defenses, then left as empty shells. Some humans did not want to leave. They had built lives in galactic civilization, had alien friends, and believed that staying and fighting for acceptance was better than running away. These people were given a choice. Come with the Exodus or stay and accept that humanity would never return for them. Most chose to leave, but a few thousand decided to remain and try to blend into alien society. The hardest part was leaving Earth itself. The home world had been partially settled by alien research teams and diplomatic missions. These had to be politely informed that their invitations were being withdrawn, and they needed to leave human space immediately. Most complied without argument, but some demanded explanations that humans refused to give. Jake Morrison had been chosen to command the final phase because he understood what this retreat really meant. Other officers saw it as a defeat or a temporary withdrawal until humans could build up strength to return. Jake knew it was something much more permanent. Humanity was not retreating to lick their wounds. They were transforming into something the galaxy had never seen before. The last ship to leave was Jake's own vessel, the UES Vengeance. As it moved away from Earth's solar system, its sensors detected the alien ships already moving in to claim abandoned human facilities. The Zephyrians would take the orbital factories. The Corvins would seize the military installations, and smaller species would pick over whatever remained like scavengers. Lisa Harper stood beside Jake, watching their homestar grow smaller in the distance. "Do you think they understand what they just did to themselves?" she asked. Jake smiled for the first time in months. It was not a pleasant expression. "They think they solved their human problem. They have no idea what kind of problem they just created." The Exodus fleet consisted of over 10,000 ships carrying nearly 2 billion humans and everything they had built in 3 centuries of space travel. They were heading for empty space far beyond any charted system where they could disappear completely from galactic awareness. But disappearing was only the first step in a much larger plan. As the last human signals faded from galactic communication networks, alien leaders celebrated their victory. The dangerous, unpredictable humans were gone, and civilized species could return to their proper relationships of controlled trade and careful diplomacy. The galaxy was finally safe from human disruption. They would have exactly 100 years to enjoy that safety before humanity returned to show them what real disruption looked like. The silent exodus was not an ending but a beginning, and the galaxy would learn too late that some species should never be underestimated, because when they return they bring consequences that cannot be undone. 50 years had passed since humanity vanished from the galaxy, and General Ryan Blake stood in the command center of New Sparta, watching the final test of their latest weapons system. The massive structure around him was not built on any planet, but carved directly from the core of a dead star. This was one of 7 forge worlds that humanity had constructed in the emptiness, beyond galactic space where no alien sensors could detect. Them Dr. Helen Price walked beside Ryan through corridors that hummed, with energy drawn from quantum generators. The technology around them would have seemed like magic to the aliens who had driven humanity into exile. Humans had learned to harvest power from the fabric of space itself, and use it to build things that violated every known law of physics. The metamaterial test was successful, Helen reported as they moved toward the primary laboratory. "Our new armor can withstand the core temperature of a star, and our weapons can tear holes in reality itself. The aliens taught us that only strength matters, so we became stronger than anything they can imagine." Ryan nodded as he looked through the transparent aluminum windows at the construction yards where new ships were being built. These vessels bore no resemblance to the crude metal boxes that humans had used during their time in galactic civilization. The new ships were grown rather than built using techniques that combined biology with quantum engineering. They could repair themselves, adapt to new threats, and most importantly, they could hide from any detection method known to galactic science. Captain Ben Rogers commanded one of the new Wraith-class destroyers that floated silently in the construction bay. His ship looked like a piece of crystallized darkness that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The hull was made from materials that existed in multiple dimensions at once, allowing the ship to phase through solid matter or become completely invisible by stepping slightly outside normal space. "We can pass through enemy shields like they do not exist," Ben explained to a group of new officers during their training session. "We can appear inside their ships, fire our weapons, and disappear before they know what happened." The old human navy fought fair battles, but fairness is a luxury we can no longer afford. Lieutenant Grace Miller had pioneered the neural command network that allowed human consciousness to interface directly with ship systems. When a captain connected to his vessel through the neural link, his thoughts became the ship's commands and his reflexes operated at the speed of light. Human crews could now react to threats faster than alien computers could process them. The aliens always said humans were too emotional and unpredictable to be trusted with advanced technology, Grace said as she demonstrated the neural interface to a class of cadets. They were right about the emotional part, but they failed to understand that emotion combined with intelligence creates something more powerful than pure logic. The transformation went far beyond technology. Humanity had changed at a fundamental level during their exile. Professor Carl Davis documented these changes in his research facilities on New Athens, where human society was being redesigned from the ground up. The old concepts of democracy and individual rights had not been abandoned, but they had been modified to serve a single overriding purpose. Every human now understood that their species was at war with the entire galaxy. Not a war that would end with treaties or negotiations, but an existential conflict where only one side could survive. The galaxy had made it clear that there was no place for humanity among civilized species, so humanity would create their own definition of civilization. Children born in the Forge worlds grew up, learning combat tactics alongside mathematics, and studied alien anatomy with the same attention they gave to art. Every human was trained to be a soldier because every human might need to fight for their species' survival. But they were not mindless warriors. They were taught to think strategically, to plan for conflicts that might not happen for generations. Commander Tony Richardson oversaw the development of Singularity, weapons that could collapse enemy ships into microscopic black holes. The technology was based on discoveries made by human scientists who had been denied access to alien research facilities. Working alone in the darkness between galaxies, humans had learned to manipulate gravity itself and use it as a weapon. The aliens hoarded their knowledge and used it to maintain their dominance, Tony explained to his engineering teams. They never shared their advanced technologies with species they considered inferior. So we developed our own technologies and made them superior to everything the aliens possess. Colonel Sarah Adams commanded the Particle Beam Research Division, where humans had learned to weaponize the fundamental forces of the universe. Her weapons could disintegrate matter at the atomic level or pass through any known form of armor and shielding. The energy requirements were enormous, but human quantum generators provided unlimited power. The most significant change was not in technology or military doctrine, but in philosophy. Humanity had tried for 3 centuries to find a place in galactic civilization. They had offered friendship, cooperation, and shared knowledge. In return, they had received contempt, restrictions, and exile. The lesson was clear, and humans had learned it well. Dr. Price stood before the High Council of Humanity in the Great Chamber on New Terra, where the most important decisions were made. The council consisted of representatives from every human settlement, and they had gathered to make the final choice about their species' future. "We have spent 50 years building the tools we need," Helen said to the assembled leaders. "Our technology surpasses anything in the galaxy. Our military is trained for total warfare, and our industrial capacity can support conflicts lasting centuries. The question now is whether we use these capabilities." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would return to the galaxy, but not as the desperate refugees who had left. They would come back as the most powerful force the universe had ever seen, with technology that made alien civilizations look primitive and weapons that could destroy entire star systems. General Blake reviewed the final plans for Operation Judgment as the Forge worlds prepared for the next phase. Humanity would not announce their return or give warnings about their intentions. They would simply appear in alien space with overwhelming force and begin the systematic destruction of everything that had made the galaxy hostile to human existence. The transformation was complete, and humanity was ready to teach the galaxy what happened when a species with unlimited potential was pushed beyond all reasonable limits. 100 years had passed since humanity vanished from galactic civilization, and the alien species had built what they believed was a perfect society. The Zephyrian Empire controlled trade routes, while the Corvan hegemony maintained military order, and smaller species filled specialized roles in the galactic economy. Wars still happened, but they were small conflicts, fought with established rules that kept destruction to acceptable levels. Emperor Valdris stood in his crystal palace on Zephys Prime, reviewing reports from across his territory. The Zephyrian homeworld was a testament to their advanced civilization, with 12 billion citizens living in harmony beneath protective energy shields. Their orbital defense platforms were the most sophisticated in the galaxy, equipped with weapons that could destroy entire fleets and sensors that could detect threats from light years away. The humans have been gone for exactly 1 century. Today, his military advisor informed him during their morning briefing. "Our archaeologists have finished studying the ruins they left behind and found nothing of value. They were even more primitive than we thought when we expelled them from civilized space." Valdris nodded with satisfaction as he looked out at his perfect world. The decision to remove humanity from the galaxy had been controversial at the time, but history had proven it correct. Without human interference, galactic civilization had flourished beyond all expectations. Trade was efficient, diplomacy was predictable, and military conflicts followed proper protocols that minimized casualties. At that exact moment, Admiral Kate Sullivan materialized her human fleet in the heart of the Zephyrian home system. 50 ships appeared without warning directly above Zephyrus Prime in positions that should have been impossible for any vessel to reach undetected. The orbital defense platforms that had protected the world for centuries simply ceased to exist, as if they had never been built at all. The Zephyrian sensor operators stared at their displays in confusion and terror. Their instruments showed human ships, but the readings made no sense. The vessels appeared to be made from materials that did not exist and powered by energy sources that violated basic physics. Some ships seemed to occupy multiple locations at the same time, while others flickered in and out of visible space as if they existed in several dimensions. Simultaneously, Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship looking down at the alien world that had once seemed so mighty to human ambassadors. Her ship, the UES Retribution, was larger than any vessel in the old human navy, but it moved through space like a living thing, responding to her thoughts through the neural command interface. The crew around her operated with perfect coordination, their minds linked to both the ship and each other. Through quantum communication, networks. Emperor Valdris appeared on the main communication screen, his crystalline features twisted with fury and disbelief. Behind him, Kate could see Zephyrian officials running in panic as alarms echoed through their command center. The perfect order of their civilization was crumbling in real time as they tried to understand how their impenetrable defenses had been bypassed so easily. Humans. Valdris screamed at the screen. You dare return to civilized space after we expelled you for the good of the galaxy. You are primitives who barely mastered spaceflight when we sent you away. How is this possible? Kate smiled with an expression that contained no warmth or mercy. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment, studying alien psychology, and planning the exact words that would cause maximum psychological damage. Her response was broadcast across all galactic communication networks so that every alien species would hear humanity's declaration of intent. We tried to be civilized, she said in a voice that carried the accumulated anger of 100 years. We offered friendship and you gave us contempt. We offered cooperation and you gave us exile. You taught us that only strength matters in this galaxy. So we became stronger than you can comprehend. This is not conquest, Emperor. This is judgment. The Zephyrian home fleet began moving to intercept the human ships even as their commanders struggled to understand what they were facing. 3,000 vessels launched from hidden bases throughout the star system, including the massive dreadnought Eternal Glory that had never been defeated in 2 centuries of warfare. The alien crews believed their overwhelming numerical advantage would compensate for whatever technological surprises the humans had developed during their exile. Commander Tony Richardson activated his experimental singularity weapons as the alien fleet approached his battle group. The devices created microscopic black holes that expanded rapidly, consuming enemy ships and compressing them into points of infinite density. Entire squadrons of Zephyrian fighters simply vanished as reality collapsed around them, leaving nothing behind except slight distortions in spacetime. Colonel Sarah Adams targeted the largest enemy vessels with her particle beam arrays. The weapons fired streams of accelerated matter that passed through alien shields and armor, as if they were made of air. The energy beams struck the molecular bonds holding enemy ships together, causing them to disintegrate into their component atoms. Mighty dreadnoughts that had ruled space for centuries became clouds of glowing particles, drifting harmlessly through the void. Captain Ben Rogers phased his Wraith-class destroyer through the hull of the Eternal Glory, appearing directly on the bridge, where Zephyrian officers stood frozen in shock. His ship fired antimatter charges into the vessel's reactor core, then disappeared back into dimensional space before the explosion could reach him. The flagship of the Zephyrian Navy died from within, as its own power source consumed it completely. The battle lasted exactly 6 hours from the first human appearance to the final alien surrender. When it ended, the most powerful military force in galactic history had been reduced to scattered debris floating in orbit around Zephyrus Prime. Not a single human ship had been damaged, and human casualties numbered exactly 0. Admiral Sullivan opened communication, channels to the surviving population on the planet below. Her message was simple and delivered without emotion or negotiation. The age of alien dominance was over, and humanity would now dictate the terms of galactic civilization. Any species that wished to survive would accept human authority without question or resistance. "You have two choices," she told the 12 billion Zephyrians huddled in their cities. "Evacuate to the outer rim systems where you will live under human supervision, or remain here and face the consequences of resistance. You have exactly 24 hours to decide." Most chose evacuation. The few who chose resistance simply vanished as human weapons erased them from existence without leaving traces behind. Cephas Prime became a monument to what happened when species challenged humanity's right to determine their own place in the universe. The message spread across the galaxy faster than light as species that had once dismissed humans as primitives realized they were facing something far beyond their comprehension. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the fortified chambers of Nexus Station as reports of human attacks flooded in from across their territory. Chancellor Korvac of the Corvin Hegemony slammed his clawed fist against the podium as he read the latest intelligence briefings. In just 3 days, human fleets had appeared in 47 different star systems following the same terrifying pattern of total military destruction followed by systematic dismantling of planetary infrastructure. How did they become so powerful? Korvac demanded as his reptilian features twisted with rage and confusion. "Our best intelligence reports suggested they had barely achieved stable faster-than-light travel when we expelled them. Now they possess weapons that make our most advanced technology look like primitive tools." Ambassador Thane of the Aquarian Federation spoke from his water-filled chamber where he floated in obvious distress. "My homeworld's orbital defenses were built using Zephyrian technology that was supposed to be impenetrable. The human weapons passed through our shields as if they did not exist and destroyed our entire fleet without taking a single casualty. This is not natural technological development. Something fundamental has changed about these creatures." Fleet Admiral Victoria Lane appeared as a hologram in the center of the council chamber. Her image transmitted from her flagship, deep in human-controlled space. The alien leaders who had once dismissed humanity as dangerous primitives now faced a woman whose very presence radiated power and authority that none of them could match. Behind her, they could see the bridge of her vessel with technology that seemed to operate beyond the laws of physics they understood. "You seem confused about what you're facing," Victoria said in a voice that carried no emotion except cold certainty. "You thought you were dealing with the same humans who left this galaxy a century ago. You were wrong about everything. We are no longer the species that begged for your acceptance. We are what you made us when you taught us that only strength matters in this universe." Chancellor Korvac activated his personal shields and surrounded himself with armed guards, as if these precautions could protect him from human technology that operated in dimensions his species could not perceive. "You were exiled because you were too aggressive and unpredictable to coexist with civilized species. Your return proves we were correct to remove you from galactic society before you could corrupt our peaceful way of life." Victoria smiled with an expression that made every alien in the chamber step backward in instinctive fear. "Peaceful," she repeated as if the word was amusing. "You call it peaceful when you denied us equal treatment for 3 centuries. You call it peaceful when you excluded us from trade routes and voting rights. You call it peaceful when you established prison zones around our colonies. We learned your definition of peace and decided to create our own. The human strategy unfolded across the galaxy with mathematical precision that terrified alien military analysts. Instead of conquering territory and holding it against counterattacks, human forces systematically eliminated every capability that could be used to wage war against them. Shipyards that had built vessels for centuries were reduced to molecular dust. Weapon factories that supplied entire star systems simply ceased to exist. Military academies where alien officers learned their trade became empty spaces where nothing remained, except faint traces of radiation. General Pete Anderson coordinated the systematic destruction from his command ship while explaining the doctrine to his subordinate officers. "We are not conquerors seeking to rule alien populations," he told them during their strategy briefings. "We are gardeners removing everything that made this galaxy hostile to human existence. When we finish our work, there will be no military force in known space capable of threatening a single human child." The Corvin Hegemony assembled the largest war fleet in their history, drawing ships from 17 different star systems and placing them under the command of their greatest military leader, War Chief Brutus. The reptilian warriors had built their entire civilization around the concept that superior force determined which species had the right to survive and prosper. They believed their massive fleet would prove human technology was impressive but not invincible. Commander Julia White met the Corvin Armada in the Kepler Nebula, where the dense gas clouds would supposedly provide cover for traditional military tactics. Her human fleet consisted of only 30 ships compared to the 3,000 vessels that Brutus commanded, but the numbers were meaningless when the opposing forces operated according to completely different physical laws. The humans employed tactics that defied everything the Corvins understood about space warfare. Human ships phased in and out of normal space, attacking from angles that should have been impossible, and using the nebula itself as a weapon by manipulating its molecular structure. When Corvin vessels tried to return fire, their weapons passed harmlessly through human ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Julia activated experimental temporal displacement weapons that attacked enemy ships in the past, causing them to never have existed in the first place. Corvin dreadnoughts that had ruled space for generations simply vanished from reality, along with all records of their construction. The reptilian warriors found themselves fighting an enemy that could rewrite history itself to ensure their own victory. War Chief Brutus transmitted his final message as his flagship disintegrated around him. "What manner of beings have you become?" he asked in a voice filled with the terror of a creature that had always believed in the supremacy of physical force. "We conquered this galaxy through strength and courage, but you fight with powers that should not exist." Julia responded without malice or satisfaction in her voice. "You taught us that might makes right, so we became mightier than anything you can imagine. You said only the strong deserve to survive, so we became stronger than the laws of physics themselves. This is what happens when a species with unlimited potential is pushed beyond the point where mercy and restraint have any meaning." When the battle ended, the Corvin military had not been defeated, but erased from existence so completely that historians would struggle to prove it had ever existed. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of military equipment, and every computer containing battle plans or strategic information had been systematically removed from reality. The reptilian warriors who had built an empire through conquest found themselves reduced to farmers and merchants, living under human supervision. The other alien species watched these demonstrations of human power and began making their own calculations about survival in a galaxy where resistance to human authority meant complete annihilation of everything they had built over thousands of years of civilization. 3 years after humanity's return, the galaxy bore no resemblance to the civilization that had existed for thousands of years before human exile. President Marcus Wright stood in the restored Capitol building on Earth, looking out at a world that had been rebuilt as a monument to human endurance and transformation. The cities gleamed with technology that harvested energy from quantum dimensions, and the skies were filled with ships that moved according to human will rather than physical limitations. "We offered them friendship and cooperation," Marcus said during his address to the remaining alien diplomatic corps. "They responded with contempt and exile. We tried to find our place in their civilization, and they told us we had no place among civilized species. So we created our own definition of what civilization should be and applied it to the entire galaxy. The transformation was complete and absolute. Where once the Galactic Council had ruled through committees and treaties, now human authority extended to every inhabited system in known space. But this was not conquest in any traditional sense, because humans had no interest in governing alien populations or extracting tribute from conquered worlds. Instead, they had fundamentally restructured reality according to principles that made human dominance inevitable and permanent. Dr. Linda Foster walked through the converted council chambers that had become a museum dedicated to the failure of alien civilization. The exhibits displayed fragments of Zephyrian warships that had been reduced to crystalline dust Corvin battle armor that had proved useless against human weapons and computer cores, containing the accumulated knowledge of species that no longer possessed the capability to threaten anyone. The aliens believed their technology was advanced because it allowed them to build large empires and maintain control over multiple star systems. Linda explained to groups of human students who came to study the relics of the old order. They never understood that true advancement means transcending the physical limitations that bind lesser species to predictable patterns of behavior. Guide Emma Brooks led tours for the few remaining alien diplomats who still hoped to negotiate some form of independence for their species. She showed them displays of weapons that could collapse matter into alternate dimensions, defenses that existed in multiple realities simultaneously, and ships that traveled by convincing the universe that they had already arrived at their destinations. Your leaders made a fundamental error when they assumed humans would remain static during our exile, Emma told a group of Aquarian representatives who floated in their mobile water tanks. You thought a century was enough time for us to die out or lose our technological capabilities. Instead, we used that time to evolve beyond anything your species can comprehend. Admiral Clark Johnson commanded the Sentinel fleet that patrolled the restructured borders of human space. His massive ships moved through the galaxy like living entities, ensuring that no alien species ever again developed the capability to challenge human authority. The vessels were not built but grown using techniques that combined quantum engineering with biological adaptation, allowing them to repair themselves and evolve new capabilities as needed. Our mission is simple, Clark explained to his officers during their regular briefings. We monitor every inhabited world and intervene the moment any species shows signs of developing technology that could be used for military purposes. Any world that achieves spaceflight beyond their home system receives a visit. Any species that demonstrates aggressive tendencies is relocated to agricultural colonies, where they can live peacefully under human guidance. The relocated populations were not treated cruelly, but they were never allowed to forget their new position in the galactic hierarchy. Former Zephyrian scientists worked in human research facilities where they studied problems that humans considered interesting. Corvan warriors served as security guards protecting human installations from the few remaining pirate groups that still operated. In the Outer Rim Systems, Commander Ben Rogers piloted his evolved Wraith-class destroyer through the ruins of what had once been the greatest military shipyard in Corvan space. The facility had been capable of producing 1,000 warships per year, until human weapons erased it from existence, leaving behind only empty space and faint radiation signatures. Similar destruction had been visited on every military installation in the galaxy, creating a peace that was maintained through the complete absence of any force capable of disturbing it. We did not destroy these facilities out of hatred or revenge, Ben told his crew as they surveyed the empty system. We eliminated them because their existence was incompatible with human security. The aliens had proven they would use any military capability against us, so we removed their ability to build or maintain military forces of any kind. Captain Lisa Harper had been promoted to oversee the integration programs where alien populations learned to function in the new galactic order. Her facilities on dozens of worlds taught former soldiers how to become farmers engineers, who had built weapons how to design civilian infrastructure, and political leaders how to manage local affairs without any authority beyond their own communities. The old galactic civilization was based on the idea that multiple species could coexist as equals, Lisa explained to her staff during their weekly progress meetings. That experiment failed because equality requires mutual respect, and the aliens proved they were incapable of respecting human rights or capabilities. The new order is based on the recognition that some species are naturally superior to others. The few alien historians who were allowed to study the transformation documented it with a mixture of terror and fascination. Professor Zenth of the former Aquarian Federation wrote in his final report that humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not simply conquered their enemies, but had rewritten the fundamental laws that governed how civilizations could develop and interact. The humans did not seek to rule us in the traditional sense, his report concluded. Instead, they eliminated our capacity to ever again pose a threat to their existence. They have created a galaxy where human will is the only force that matters, and where all other species exist only because humans permit it. This is not tyranny, because tyranny implies the ruled retain some hope of eventual freedom. This is something far more absolute. The final entry in the Galactic Historical Archive was written by an unknown human scholar who summarized the entire transformation in words that would be studied by future generations. The aliens told us we did not belong among the stars because we were too dangerous and unpredictable to coexist with civilized species. We accepted their judgment and agreed that coexistence was impossible. But they made one critical error in their reasoning. They assumed that if coexistence was impossible, then humans would be the ones to disappear. Instead, we decided that if only one type of civilization could survive, then it would be ours. The stars do not belong to those who reach them first. They belong to those strong enough to keep them